And welcome back. My next guest is Pat Coleman, our Animal Control Officer here in the town of Clarkstown. Welcome, Pat.
Good morning.
So I'm delighted to have you on the program. I know that you've really been instrumental here in the town of Clarkstown with animal welfare for a very long period of time. And so for the benefit of our viewers, who don't have any interaction with you on a regular basis, maybe you could talk a little bit about yourself. What brought you to working here in the town of Clarkstown, how long you've worked here, and let's talk a little bit about your office.
Well, I'm proud to say I'm the Animal Control Officer for the town of Clarkstown, and I just celebrated my 36th anniversary, December 19th last year. And I began as a dog warden, dog catcher, the old, the little rascals carrying the net. People still believe that's what dog catchers do.
Yeah.
That we ride around trying to steal people's dogs. And that's not really what we do. Sometimes I'm really excited when I find a dog that has no tag, but it has a microchip. Because when I first started, we didn't have microchips. And dog collars come off. I actually had a dog years ago. The dog knew my truck, would respond to his name. I'd open the door of the truck and he'd jump right in. I went, that time there was a pet store across the street from Higgins Funeral Home, and I bought a collar and I bought a tag, put his name on it, the owner's information, delivered him home. I was so excited. The next day he was out without his collar. Oh, we don't want them calling us. Okay, so now he's got to go through the system.
Right.
And you could pick him up, pay a fine, and get him back. But normally, if a dog has a tag on and some identification, if I'm not working, the Clarkstown police, they respond, and they're very good. They're big dog lovers, and the dog poles are in their vehicles for their safety and the dogs. So if a dog was acting aggressive, instead of taking lethal, they would turn around and get the dog pole out.
Right.
And we have in our communications area, where you call in, we have a lost and found book. So when a dog is found, okay, this is what we have. Is it in the book yet?
Right.
And sometimes it's in there and the dog is reunited, and if not, it goes to the animal shelter.
Roughly how many dogs would you say get picked up each year in the town of Clarkstown?
Well, we pick up probably 80 to 100, and probably about 65 to 70 go to the shelter.
Okay.
A lot of them are returned to owners.
Well, that's great. And cats, of course. I mean, you're also picking up cats and other animals as well, correct?
Yes, yes. I handle them when they're sick or injured. So when somebody calls up that they have a nuisance, the woodchuck is made a house under their sheds. Sheds are popular for a lot of breeds. If a woodchuck had made a house under a shed, the next animal could be a skunk, a fox. So if you know you have animals living under your shed, you really should address it so you don't end up having other surprises.
Right. What's the most unusual animal that you've been involved with having to secure,
Well, my least favorite are snakes. And when the pet store at the mall used to be on the 4th floor, a gentleman and his mom were at the Nyack Motor Lodge. And apparently, while they were there, he went across and he made friends with the store, and he brought home a very big boa without any equipment. So it was loose in the room. So when the gentleman was arrested, I felt like I was in a scene from Jaws, because I pull up, they're like, we need the ACO, we have a snake in the room. Okay, so I get out with a very small container for the snake, and they lift the bed up, and there's this huge boa constrictor, and her name was JoJo.
Oh.
And JoJo wasn't very happy, so I ended up having to use a airline crate, which would probably hold a 50-pound dog.
Wow.
And we had to maneuver her into that carrier, and I returned her to the store where he had gotten her from. And he was actually arrested for breaking and entering.
Oh.
So he had gotten hurt going back to the Nyack Motor Lodge, and that's, his mother didn't want the snake in the room. So that's how we got involved.
So snakes,
They're not my favorite.
They're not your favorite.
And they're the concern we have in our area are copperheads. And unfortunately, they do look like other snakes. And we had a young man at Hightor Park a few years ago. He was working, and he unfortunately was bitten by one. And today, the kids all have cell phones with cameras,
right.
which was probably a lifesaver for this young man. He took a picture. The other person working with him drove him up to the office. In the old days, you would have had to run,
Right.
which probably could have killed him because of the venom. So they showed the picture to their boss, who called the ambulance. He was taken to Nyack, and then further treatment to Jacoby Hospital, because they're more equipped to deal with snake venom because of the Bronx Zoo.
And so snakes are your least favorite, obviously with the dogs, and you've got the cats. Any other unusual animals that you've ended up having to collect?
Well, the hawks seem to get into trouble. Whether they hit something, they misjudge. Sometimes, like we had recently with the eagle, with the poisoning, sometimes that happens to the hawks also.
Right.
They eat something that could actually end up killing them because it's poison. So the hawks are gorgeous animals. They really are. The eagle, I'm hoping they name her and that we get to see her before she's released.
So just for the benefit of our viewers, maybe you could, I know it was covered in the Journal News, but we're filming this show in the middle of March, and it'll be airing within the next several weeks. But a couple of weeks ago, so the beginning of March, we had a situation with a resident with an eagle on their property. Maybe you can explain what happened there.
Well, I knew the resident from dog complaints. Unfortunately, she was a victim. And so I'm on speed dial.
Right.
And she called me, "Pat, I've been following this eagle." Following an eagle?
Yeah.
So before I left the station, I grabbed a green recycle bin. So I'm like, this is a big bird. I'm going to need something big to put her in, or him. And as it turned out, it wasn't big enough because that's how big the eagle was.
Right.
But fortunately, the time of day, it was 5 o'clock in the afternoon. They live very close to Strawtown Road. I was able to get the eagle to retreat up the hill away from the road, and where it was now safe and didn't feel threatened by us.
Right.
And
And it wasn't able to fly, correct?
No, it was very odd. It did extend its wings, but it wasn't enough to fly. And it turned out the lead poisoning actually, the eagle had a problem with the eyesight also. So this bird was probably lucky that this resident actually took the time to follow it, take the time to make that phone call, because sometimes we get phone calls, people don't leave a phone number, and they're concerned. Oh, I saw a dog running loose on such and such a road, but they don't leave a phone number.
Right.
So, you know, it always helps to leave a phone number. If you want to stay anonymous, that's fine, but a phone number helps me to track down closer to where the animal was last seen.
Right. And so the happy ending with this, we hope, is that the eagle was, through your efforts with the neighbors there, were able to reach out to some folks that were able to take the eagle, and it's undergoing treatment as we speak for the lead poisoning, correct?
Yes, yes.
And the lead poisoning, they think, comes potentially from buckshot and things of that nature?
Well, with the fish also, the
Right.
lures.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you have a winter with the ice, there's less fish for them to eat. So then
Right.
that's when they tend to eat other things.
Right. And so so unfortunately this eagle developed lead poisoning, but it's actually undergoing treatment. And I didn't realize this after this was actually brought to our attention, and we recognized you and the two residents that were involved at the town board meeting earlier in March. There's a whole gamut of articles that are out there on the internet and in the media about just the vast number of eagles and hawks that are dying from lead poisoning.
Yeah, absolutely. It's frightening.
Right.
I have golden retrievers, and friends of mine that actually hunt with their dogs.
Mm-hmm.
They had sent me information also.
Mm-hmm.
And so you try to spread the word as much as you can when you have an opportunity to.
Right.
And that's what we had here, an opportunity to educate
Mm-hmm.
on the type of ammo that's used. I did bring it to the attention of our PBA president,
Mm-hmm.
who's going to see if that's the kind of ammo we already use. If
Right.
not,
Mm-hmm.
they'll hopefully, when they distribute the ammo to our officers,
Mm-hmm.
they'll say, well, use this if you are dispatching an animal.
Right. The other thing, you talk about education. We had an education seminar as it relates to coyotes that you helped put together because we are experiencing a growth in the number of coyotes in the region and particularly in the area. It was actually covered in the New York Times and several other media outlets in I guess January. Maybe you could speak a little bit about the coyote situation here in the town.
Well, our residents that tend to see them now, we're getting a lot of calls in the old Route 304 area. It's my understanding there was some construction or trees taken out. So when this happens, last year it was on 304 when Hard Rock was extending. We had a group of fox that were displaced, and that created a very bad situation for a neighborhood because people they didn't want to wake up to find body parts of animals on their lawns, but this is the way the mother teaches the fox to hunt. And now with the coyotes, it is getting time for them to have their pups, and they're nothing to be afraid of. They do serve a purpose. They do go after the woodchucks that are annoying your property. Up in Stony Point, they're happy to have the coyotes on the golf course because since they've been there, they haven't had a woodchuck problem.
Right.
So it's an animal that has rabies, that's the danger. And that's what happened over in Westchester recently. And the second one that was shot, that didn't make the news yet, so my guess it probably wasn't rabbit. That was in Yonkers. The one that bit 8 people, they did get, and that tested positive.
Right.
When a coyote has that kind of behavior, there's no doubt that it's going to be rabbit.
Right. And those they tend to try and stay away from people for the most part, correct?
Absolutely, absolutely. You'll see them if you're fortunate enough to enjoy the beauty, and then you turn to get your camera and it's not there.
Right.
That's how quickly they know to move. They do feed off the deer. We had that over in Nanuet a few weeks ago, and as soon as we removed the deer, the coyote didn't come back out.
Right. Well, Pat, that's about all the time we have for today. I want to thank you for being a great guest, but more importantly for your service here. It's 37 years that you've...
Hopefully, the end of the year.
You're into your 37th year here of service in the town of Clarkstown, and you've been just such an instrumental part. I know that of the animal welfare and maintenance program that the town undertakes. Our residents will call you. You've helped to reunite families with lost pets, but also you're there to be able to help out in these unusual situations with the wildlife within our community. And we're fortunate. You know, our town and our community was very different 37 years ago. Well, you know, there's less open space as there was, you know, back then. But in that ensuing time, you know, we still have a very diverse and healthy environment. You know, we have our occasional bear that comes through. You know, they live within our community. We have these foxes and coyotes, the eagles, the hawks, even a vulture issue that you're working on now. But it's also the sign of a healthy ecosystem within our area, and we should be proud of the fact that we live in a community that's that healthy. The ecosystem is that healthy. But more importantly, your efforts have really kind of helped our residents in our town for a long period of time. You've had a major impact, so thank you for your service here.
It's been a pleasure and an honor.
Good. And we'll be right back.